What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor at the Herald, joined as always by our Inter Miami beat writer, Michelle Kaufman. And we are coming off the Club World Cup, which is not over yet. A lot of interesting things still to happen in the tournament itself, but it is over for Inter Miami. But what a fun time it was for the club. What a ride it was. A lot of big developments. Obviously, them getting to the round of 16. But we'll review, of course, their exit unceremoniously 4-0 by Paris Saint-Germain. Not all unexpected considering the monster that PSG has become. But we will talk about them kind of holding their own in this tournament and exceeding some people's expectations, at least advancing through the group stage. We'll hear from Javier Mascherano. We'll hear from Jordi Alba, Maxi Falcone, just about the team's performance in general. And then we'll shift gears just like they are and talk a little bit about what is a busy, very busy month of July coming up for this team as they re-enter league play coming up. Where are they at in the standings? What do they have to do to get back near the top? And, of course, the Leagues Cup, another tournament that this team is involved in, coming up at the end of July. And we'll go over also a big topic of discussion right now, Lionel Messi's contract situation. Is the extension coming? We'll talk a little bit about Inter Miami salaries, what may surprise you. Some of them are shocking, some of the numbers that Michelle was able to provide people not that long ago about what what Inter Miami players are making on this team right now. And, of course, we teased this in our last episode, but we talked about Michelle's tour of Miami Freedom Park. We'll have some pictures. She'll discuss a little bit about what she saw. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. But, like we said, Inter Miami overall did well. Unfortunately, went out with a thud against PSG. 4 goals in the first half, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to take a big picture approach to this loss, which is what Javier Mascherano and the players. But really, if you look at it, Atletico Madrid lost to PSG 4-0 in the tournament opener. Inter Milan lost 5-0 to PSG in the Champions League final. That is the Champions League final. Inter Milan is a European power team that made the Champions League final. They lost 5-0 to PSG. So Inter Miami losing 4-0, yes, a disappointment, obviously, for the team, for the fans, for the club. And the way it went, that all 4 goals were in the first half. I mean, it was, from the minute that game started, you could just see that there was a difference in level. There was a difference in their organization, a difference in their passing. They have exquisite passing. They were pressing super high and just pinning Inter Miami back to where Lionel Messi, he had 14 touches total in the first half. In the first 45 minutes, he only touched the ball 14 times. So, they rendered him basically invisible. Luis Suarez invisible in the first half. PSG completely dominated. Completely dominated. They just pressed very high. They didn't give Inter Miami any space to do anything. And in the meantime, they score in the 6th minute on a free kick that was really demoralizing because it was 6 minutes in. The crowd was very much, I was there in Atlanta. The crowd was very much a pink crowd, very excited to see
Yeah.
Messi, very excited to see Inter Miami. And in the 6th minute, for them to give up such an easy goal, the guy was unmarked, completely unmarked on a free kick. So that was demoralizing, a way to start the game. And then they end up another one. And then Toto Aviles, I don't know. He has like a little gray cloud over his head. When he comes in, it seems like bad things happen. But Noah Allen got injured, which was very unfortunate. And Toto Aviles came in to replace him. And this is not an exaggeration. Within 30 seconds, he had a yellow card. And this has been a problem for Toto. He led the league last year in yellow cards. He gets a yellow card in 30 seconds in, and then he scores an own goal. And then all of a sudden it's 3-0 in the first half, and then it becomes 4-0, in added time in the first half. So they go into halftime 4-0,
Yeah.
and that's it. The second half was going to be just for
Uh,
pride, and they did play better in the second half. Of
yeah.
course, PSG PSG took their foot off the gas.
Right. That it felt at halftime, it almost felt like it could get extremely ugly. It could get to 6-7 the way PSG was playing. I mean, one of the telling stats, we know that even Inter Miami in games that they've lost, they control possession for the most part. PSG ended up 63%. I'm looking at the box here, 63% for the game. In the first half, there was a while that number was 73%.
It was 73% in the first half. Yeah, I mean, for Miami to not possess the ball, that is one thing Miami does do.
Right.
They like to possess the ball. And one of the things that Luis Enrique said after is, I know that the score was what it was, but he said, we have to appreciate that Inter Miami was trying to play. They were not just parking the bus, because he said Botafogo, which did beat them 1-0. He said they did beat us 1-0, but they basically just played defensive. Mm-hmm. They parked the bus and they just played defensive, and they did end up winning 1-0. They got the result. He said in this game, it was two teams that were trying to play and trying to possess the ball and move the ball and do things. And Miami just never really had a chance in the first half because PSG was so dominant. They had the ball the entire time. And then in the second half, obviously they're leading 4-0. They took their foot off the gas a little. Miami had more space. When they had more space, they were able to do a little more, even though they still did not finish. And Messi did feed Luis Suarez a beautiful opportunity to at least get one goal, and he misfired on the shot. Yeah. So, they didn't get anything. They end up 4-0. But in the grand scheme of things, we see that, yes, there is a gap between MLS and PSG. Okay, maybe not between MLS and some other teams that were in this tournament. And they did tie Palmeiras. Miami tied Palmeiras, which is in the quarterfinals.
Should have beaten Palmeiras, to be honest. They were up 2-0 with 10 minutes left.
Yeah. 2-0 with 10 minutes left against a team that is in the quarterfinals. So they played very well against Palmeiras. If they had won that game, then they would have played Botafogo in the round of 16
maybe
instead of PSG. And they would, still be in it. They would still be in the quarterfinals, maybe. As it happened, they end up with PSG, which is a team that could win the whole thing. But if you look at the whole overview, this team was not most people thought they were going to lose all three games. If you were being honest right now, most people thought they're going to lose all three games. They'll be lucky to get one tie, maybe against Al Ahly or something. They end up going through the group stage undefeated. No one expected one win over Porto, a European team, and two ties. And, could have won, was in position to win in the 80th minute against Palmeiras. So the group stage, they very far, to me, exceeded expectations. Do you agree? I mean, to me, they exceeded expectations in the group stage by far.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about, and some of it had to do with the way this team was playing heading into the tournament. A lot of us thought, can they even win a match? They've been so inconsistent. They've been so bad defensively for a while. All of a sudden, that first match, Ustadi making saves left and right. The defense was playing better. It was a scoreless stalemate, which was probably the disappointing part. Was on the offensive end instead. And then they come out and have that huge win over Porto, and you're thinking, wow, this team making some history, making some noise, and then you're ahead 2-0 with 10 minutes to go against Palmeiras, and all of a sudden you're looking at group winner. You're looking at obviously a little bit easier path in the knockout round, and then that disappears unfortunately in a blink. But yeah, overall, I think this team did really well. I think they showed something. They showed something, I guess, for MLS. There may be some people that still say, well, it's the MLS team that has Messi and has Suarez, and it's not a typical MLS team. But you know what? Hey, they did better than they were able to do. I mean, PSG is on another level, even worldwide at this point.
Right.
I mean, you could tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think overall, you have to look at this and say that it was a success for them. And that is how Javier Mascherano saw it, that we should.
Let's see.
I agree with what Javi said. I agree with what he said. Let's see what he said.
Bueno, Javier, aquí estamos. Ya sabemos el resultado. Dijiste antes que no quería hacer ningún análisis del torneo porque todavía estaban jugando. Ahora, después del partido, ¿qué puedes decir de lo que pasó hoy y del rendimiento del equipo durante el torneo? Gracias.
Bueno, buenas noches. Bueno, buenas tardes. Buenas noches. Buenas noches, pero buenas tardes. El análisis del torneo, bueno, creo que hemos cumplido con, con el objetivo que nos habíamos trazado, ¿no? Nosotros teníamos muy claro que a la hora de competir, podíamos competir hasta un cierto nivel. Hoy, al final, tarde o temprano, la realidad te lo demuestra. Pero sobre todo orgulloso de los chicos, de los jugadores, por el torneo que han hecho. Creo que hemos estado a la altura de la expectativa que había sobre nosotros. Y bueno, nada, lamentablemente en el partido de hoy, cuando tomás un gol tan temprano contra un equipo como este, es muy difícil. Lamentablemente lo tomamos de una manera que, digamos, demasiado fácil, es decir, en una pelota parada. Me hubiese gustado que sí nos tenían que marcar pronto, hubiese sido de otra manera. Pero bueno, más allá de eso y de la avalancha que fue el primer tiempo, creo que bueno, el segundo tiempo, claramente ellos bajaron un poco el ritmo, pudimos jugar más, pudimos demostrar lo que normalmente hacemos en la MLS. Un poco eso, Michelle. Te vuelvo a repetir, en conclusión, orgulloso de lo que han hecho o lo que ha hecho este grupo de jugadores, y nada, de ahora en adelante mirar hacia el futuro y ver si logramos rentabilizar toda esta experiencia, como hablábamos quizás un poco ayer, para lo que son las competiciones más domésticas nuestras y más normales, y donde nosotros quizás las expectativas son otras. Gracias. De nada.
Yeah, so for those who don't have the subtitles, Javier Mascherano said similar to what we've been saying. Look, he said, I think we met our goal coming into the tournament, which was to get out of the group stage. We did that. Unfortunately, we ran up against a team like PSG and we gave up a goal so early. And he said it was very unfortunate the way we gave up that goal. It was too easy. When you give up a goal that easy, it's very difficult to come back against a team like that. And he said, if we were going to give up a goal, I wish that it had not been like that, that it had been not so easy. We kind of gave them that goal early. It was very difficult after that. And he said, but, overall, he felt that the team, met the expectations that most people had for them. And I really think exceeded expectations, not met, exceeded expectations. I don't think anyone even expected them to be in the round of 16. So I think, he said we met expectations, and now hopefully we can use this experience as we go back into our domestic league, which is going to be, he didn't want to say more our level, but basically he was saying it's going to be more normal competition for us now in our league, in our domestic league, and the expectations are different, for MLS than they are for this tournament. And so, in conclusion, I mean, takeaways. Number one, also, by the way, Inter Miami went home $21 million richer. Let's not forget that they earned $21 million in prize money for making the round of 16. That is a lot of money that this club can use for salaries in the future and for other things in infrastructure, or, maybe the stadium. I don't know, but they made $21 million. And the players do get a small cut. They wanted a bigger cut, MLSPA, but I think each team, the maximum that the team can get is $1 million to split up. So this team will get $1 million to split up among the players, and then the club will get $20 million that they can use club-wide. So they do come home richer from a financial standpoint, but they also come back with confidence, I would think, and motivation that if they can play with Palmeiras, a quarterfinalist in the tournament, if they can play and beat Porto and, and tie the African champion, then they should be able to beat Montreal. They should be able to beat New England. They should be able to beat Chicago. I think they would come back feeling like if we can play with those guys, we should be able to play with MLS. And now, I think that's what they come away with, a lot of confidence, right? What do you think?
Yeah. I think that, well, it's going to be interesting because we have seen this team have ups and downs, very unpredictable letdowns sometimes. So, yeah, it would make sense that, yes, the competition level, you would have that approach, but doesn't always work that way, as we well know in sports. There's also such things like a drop off, and they're not only going to jump back in the MLS play. Their next opponent is one of the worst teams in MLS right now by record. So this is going to be, again, on paper, a big drop off from going from PSG. Sorry, Montreal, but it's true, to go into that game as well, even though it's a road game. Right.
This is a big wah wah. You've just been in front of the whole world. You've been playing on the big stage against PSG,
right,
against the Champions League winner,
yeah,
with Enrique,
the best club in the world right now, until proven otherwise.
Best club in the world, and you're going to the worst. You're about to play the worst team in MLS. So,
right.
What did Maxi Falcone have to say? Yeah. What did Maxi?
Yeah.
Let's see what Maxi said, and then we're going to continue on this topic.
Siempre la ilusión y estos torneos seguir, pero hay que ser consciente también del rival al que nos enfrentábamos. Yo creo que hicimos un buen papel en lo que respectó al torneo. Por ahí el objetivo nuestro principal era pasar, y obviamente cuando te enfrentas a esta clase de rivales no puedes cometer ningún error y bueno, no darle las cuentas muy rápido, un gol de pelota quieta que a veces esos goles son los que para ahí te joden, digamos, porque yo prefiero que me hagan el partido mediante el juego, pero nada, tratamos en el segundo tiempo de revertir los errores que tuvimos ante un equipo que cuando cometes esos errores tienen jerarquía y te termina haciendo pagar. No, obviamente que como dije, ¿no? Todos los jugadores quieren jugar estos partidos todos los días. En lo personal, como decía, era algo para mí también a ver cómo estás, pero yo creo que más de eso es grupal también el trabajo. El equipo dio todo, y cuando el rival te supera. En la realidad, nosotros vimos todo para que eso no pasara, y nos terminaron dejando afuera en un torneo que como decía Oscar, hay que ser consciente también de lo que se logró. El equipo tiene muy poca edad, y yo creo que es algo muy positivo para seguir creciendo, porque de la noche a la mañana en el fútbol nunca se ganó. Siempre hay que trabajar y pasar la página, porque son momentos duros, pero el fútbol te da revancha a la vuelta de la esquina. Y como nos medimos ante grandes rivales, yo creo que si jugamos de la misma manera tenemos grandes chances de ganar la mayoría de los partidos. Sabemos que los rivales siempre contra nosotros acá nos quieren ganar todo, y hay que estar a la altura para eso, competir cada partido y ir mejorando los errores. Ganes o pierdas, siempre hay cosas para mejorar. Y nada, como te digo, pasar la página porque ya en nada se vienen otros partidos y hay que estar.
Yeah, so Maxi Falcone, as far as the game goes, said, similar thing, that they just faced a rival that, that just was very difficult for them. He went through again explaining what happened in the game, and then he said, but we showed that we can play with these teams, and now he was saying we need to now use that. We're going back to play our domestic teams. Of course, he said the teams here, they always want to beat us. They're going to bring their best. All the MLS teams are going to bring their best against Inter Miami's like, I don't want to say they're the PSG of MLS because they haven't really won the MLS Cup or anything, but they are a team that has a target on their back because of Messi, and all the MLS teams do want to play. This is me talking, not Maxi, but Maxi was saying that the other teams always want to play their best against Miami in MLS, and now they have to show that if they can play at that level that they played in this tournament, they should be able to win the majority of their games. He said we should be able to win the majority of our games. And now, we have to turn the page. We have to turn the page and look forward, because we have a lot of games coming up, and one is coming right around the corner. There's a chance for us right around the corner. So right around the corner is
Canada.
Wah, 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 wah. You know, Montreal, the last place
Montreal,
team.
last place team. But I mean, like
Yeah.
7 games in 25 days is a busy schedule for this team. They have to catch up.
Yes.
Let's take a look real quick before we start this discussion. Inter Miami right now has lost ground in the standings, but it's a little skewed because they're in 6th place right now, but the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference have all played 20 matches because of the tournaments. Yeah, the 20 matches. Inter Miami has only played 16. So they've got plenty of games in hand.
They have 4 games in hand.
They're 11 points out of first right now, and they're 10 points out of second, which is Cincinnati. Philadelphia's in first still. Nashville 38, Columbus 37, Orlando City 33, Inter Miami 29. So they're more than one win just to get to 5th place right now. But again, 4 games in hand is going to help. But again, it doesn't matter if it's Montreal, whoever it is in MLS, they have to pounce and they have to get these results starting this weekend.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a few things are going to come into play. Number one, are all of these starters going to play against Montreal? I mean, the question is, they have 7 games coming up in 25 days. Do you think that Lionel Messi is going to play 7 games over the next 25 days? Is Luis Suarez going to play 7 games over the next 25 days? That is a lot of games. That's 1 game every 3.5 days. So, you know,
I wouldn't play a lottery ticket on that.
You know, and they have to play at New England, which is a turf field. They don't love that, you know, and they've got basically in the next 5 games, 4 are on the road. There's only 1 home game on the 12th against Nashville in the next 5 games. So they play 4 games on the road in the next 5 with only Nashville at home. And, you know, it's going to be physically difficult for all of these players to be at full fitness and ready to go for 7 games in the next 25 days. But they do have ground to make up in the standings. They don't want to keep slipping. Number 2 is this and this going into these games. Are they going to be as motivated? Is it going to be as exciting for them to be playing MLS teams? Are they going to be able to rise to the occasion? And yes, this is what they're paid to do, and they should. MLS is paying their salary. The fans bought tickets. The season ticket holders bought tickets for them to see these MLS games. They're going to have to get their hearts and minds back into MLS after this fun ride that they had in the Club World Cup.
I don't think in the long run, I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. I think maybe now in the beginning, you know, that suddenly there's like a natural drop off after all the big high of being in the Club World Cup, and now you go to Montreal and all of that. Maybe we'll see a little kick in the behind game where they have a tie they weren't supposed to, a loss they weren't supposed to, and maybe that'll kick things in gear for them. We might, you never know. But yeah, I think initially that could be an issue, but I think in the long term, you know, what you're saying, the pride, the professionalism will kick in, and I think they will get up for the games eventually.
Maybe it'll kick in right away.
Or maybe it'll kick in right away. I'm wrong. Yeah.
They don't want to go in. They do not want to be embarrassed by Montreal.
Right. I'm just saying, worst case, I can't see that.
Case
is what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. We asked, Jordi Alba was asked after the game the other day, you know, it seemed like the team was more motivated, had extra motivation. You know, was that really the case? Was the team more motivated to win these games than the league? Let's see what he had to say.
Pues, creo que hemos competido bien, sinceramente por encima de las expectativas que tenía la gente. A mi entender hemos sido mejores en nuestro partido de grupo a todos los rivales y luego hoy obviamente estábamos contra el mejor equipo del mundo ahora mismo que practica el fútbol y era difícil, ¿no? Pero pese a ello creo que hemos competido la primera parte, sobre todo también la segunda, que hemos tenido pues, más control del partido, hemos tenido más llegadas, le hemos creado muchos más problemas al PSG, pero nada que reprochar, ¿no? Al final pues, las reglas son las reglas en la MLS, pero para estar orgullosos de todos los jugadores, de cada uno de ellos, del staff. Creo que hemos estado a un grandísimo nivel y esto nos servirá para coger confianza y saber que podemos competir contra cualquiera si estamos al nivel que hemos estado este Mundial de Clubs. Hemos tenido 3 rivales en grupo que también pues, son de grandísima entidad y hemos sido mejores, sinceramente, lo digo abiertamente. Hemos sido mejores que los 3 rivales del grupo, a mi entender. Hoy, obviamente, estábamos hablando de un grandísimo rival y te someten mucho, pero bueno, las cosas son como son y es para estar orgullosos de todos los compañeros. Sí, obviamente la sensación es diferente, no te voy a engañar. He estado toda mi vida pues sometido a estos rivales, a esta presión de ganar, de competir. También pues la tenemos aquí en la MLS, porque no hemos venido aquí de vacaciones ni mucho menos, ya lo conocéis, pero sabiendo la dificultad que conlleva jugar contra este tipo de rivales, pues es una motivación más, pero ya te digo, ahora encararlo de la mejor manera. Creo que esto nos tiene que dar mucha moral, mucha confianza, sabiendo que si estamos bien vamos a tener muchas opciones de ganar la MLS, ¿no? Y eso es lo que hoy en día pues optamos, ¿no?
Okay, so Jordi said, first of all, about the game again, repeating about they faced a rival that is the best club team in the world. Very difficult to beat a team like that, but he was very proud of how his team performed. And he said, I will say, in all honesty, in my view, we were the best team in our group. He said, I feel that we played better than the other 3 teams in our group, and that has to give the team a lot of confidence going forward. He said it should be a boost in confidence for our team going forward, that if we can play like that, we can really play against anybody. And then he said, yes, I have to admit, I'm not going to fool you. I'm not going to lie. There was a different feeling in these games because he said, I had spent my entire career playing against that level of opponent and with that kind of pressure to win. And that is the feeling that we felt during this tournament. And yes, we do also have pressure to win in MLS. He said, we didn't come here on vacation. He said, we didn't come here on vacation, but it was a different feeling playing against those teams in the Club World Cup. And now we have to transfer that feeling back to MLS. And he said, our goal now is to win the MLS. Our goal now is to win the MLS title. So, they started this season with 4 trophies in sight. 4 trophies. Champions Cup, they lost in the semifinals. Club World Cup, they lost in the round of 16. There are 2 titles left for this team that really only has 2 pieces of hardware in their trophy cabinet in the 6 years. They won the Leagues Cup in 2023. They won the Supporters Shield last year. But they want the MLS Cup, and then there's the Leagues Cup, which I personally, if I'm ranking them, I would rank MLS Cup over Leagues Cup. To me, Leagues Cup is the same, very similar to the Champions Cup CONCACAF that they already played. It's going to be the best teams in MLS against the best teams in Mexico. A lot of the same matchups that we saw in Champions Cup. So they want to win it. Yes. I think their big goal now is to win MLS Cup.
Yeah. And no time to waste. Going back real quick to the standings. I was looking above them. I didn't really look below them. And we know that the top 7 make the playoffs. The 8 and 9 teams are play-ins. Even the 9th place team right now is only 1 point behind Inter Miami. So there's really no time to waste for them to come in strong, firing on all cylinders, and start to rack up points because they need to get back in this thing. And
they do. I mean, that would be really a huge, huge disappointment. And especially this club, and we're going to talk about Messi's contract in a minute. This club is trying to build this summer, build a fan base, because they are spending $300 million on a new stadium, and they want fans to fill that stadium. They want the team to do well from now through the end of the season. The Club World Cup cannot be, group stage. Getting through the group stage cannot be the highlight of the season. Right. If that is the highlight of the whole season, then the season is a failure. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. Yes, it's a wonderful thing that they got through the group stage, but if they come back to MLS now and are a middle of the pack team that barely makes the playoff or something, that is not going to be, not going to be deemed a big success. And that is not going to energize your fan base going into next season.
Even if you were any other MLS team, you just were first place last year and you won the Supporter Shield, and then you go from that to what you just said, that's a disappointment for anybody. Forget about Inter Miami and all the expectations, just for anyone themselves. And But to wrap up the Club World Cup discussion, real quick peek before we jump ahead. Here's what's left.
Yeah, let's go to the quarterfinals.
Here's what's left.
Palmeiras
Well,
Chelsea.
going
right?
in chronological order, on the 4th of July, if you want to watch some soccer on the 4th of July, you have a doubleheader. Al Hilal and Fluminense, who both pulled off huge upsets, now face each other at 3:00 in that one. And then at 9, Palmeiras, who Michelle mentioned, is on a roll, but now faces the juggernaut from England, Chelsea, at 9:00 on the 4th of July. And then the next day, on the 5th, at high noon, PSG back in action against the Bayern Munich team, who is formidable to say the least. I covered that game where they beat Flamengo, and Harry Kane looked good. That team has a lot of firepower. This should be a treat. And then at night, Borussia Dortmund taking on Real Madrid. That's a 4:00 start on the 5th. Interesting final 8 there, Michelle, considering you have some of the juggernauts, some of the famous brand names, but maybe some teams like Al Hilal that, maybe this isn't the end. Maybe they can keep going.
Surprise. Yeah. There are 5 European teams and 3 non-European teams. I think, again, going into this tournament, maybe people thought it would be all European teams or maybe one South American team. So the Brazilian teams have really stepped up. There were 4 teams in the tournament. 2 of them are in the final 8. Palmeiras has looked very good, and Fluminense, knocked off Inter Milan. Al Hilal has been the biggest surprise, I think, knocking off Manchester City. That was huge. And that team, again, this Club World Cup has been a chance for the world to see, that there are teams outside of Europe that are good, and also teams that have wonderful fan bases, like the Brazilian teams and the Argentine teams. For the rest of the world, I think the rest of the world always watches the World Cup, and we know that Brazilian fans are passionate for the Brazil national team. The Argentine fans are passionate for the Argentine national team. I think that this tournament has shown fans around the world what the club atmosphere is like in Argentina and Brazil. And it's really fun. And Brazil has invested a lot of money into their domestic league. Their whole idea is, hey, we have all these great players and they go to Europe. All of our best players go to Europe and then they come play on our national team. Why don't we keep them here in our domestic league and make our domestic league stronger? And so they are doing a great job, the Brazilian Federation, of getting players to stay in Brazil by paying higher salaries. And we're seeing now, we're seeing what the result of that is. So this is going to be really interesting. This Fluminense game against Al Hilal is the battle of the 2 surprises. And I think that game is going to be really entertaining.
Flamengo is very good. Let me tell you, they talent-wise, they have a lot of Brazilian players, like you were saying, and that stadium was 4/5. That crowd was on Flamengo's side. Every time Bayern Munich scored, you heard a little bit of cheering, but it was like a hushed cheering from the press box compared to the stadium just blowing up whenever Flamengo scored, which they did twice, including a PK in that game. So that they're not far behind. Let me tell you, on in terms of being considered, and obviously that's been a big topic of discussion throughout the tournament. Is the whole European teams are up here. Is there enough respect for the South American sides and all the European coaches?
And then Al Hilal.
And then Al
Hilal is also, they're paying a lot of money. And to be honest, MLS, the biggest competition right now for MLS, honestly, is the Saudi League, because they're kind of like the 2 outsiders. The South American League has been around a long time, and the European leagues are the cream of the crop. They have all the history, they have everything of the European teams and the European leagues. But MLS and the Saudi League are kind of the new kids on the block. And the Saudi League, if they can just open up all their checkbooks and pay whatever salaries, and then MLS, we're about to go into salaries here, that some of these are going to shock you. We're going to wrap it up really quick with that part, and then at the stadium and Messi's, we're going to wrap up a lot in the next 10 minutes. But MLS is not paying the salaries yet that the Saudi League is paying, and that may keep them behind.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in right away. What's the latest, Michelle, have you heard on Messi's contract situation?
Messi's contract situation is that, from everything I am hearing from inside sources, they are very close to signing and announcing. there were some reports that were coming out that, of course, everything goes viral and spreads that, oh no, he said, here, some person close to him said that he wants to play in a league more competitive than MLS leading into the World Cup next year. Everything I'm hearing is that the talks are still on track. They're finalizing. It's a very complicated contract for many, many reasons. There's issues of control because he's going to be a part owner of the team and have equity in the team. How much control will he have over the business side, over the sporting side, over the roster, over the coach? How much control will he have as an owner? That is one thing that is something that has to be negotiated. And then, of course, the money, and then the fact that he's not an American citizen, so there's taxation and issues and things like that. It's a complicated contract. It's not an easy contract that you can just say, here, we're going to pay you this amount of money, and he says okay, and he signs. So it's a complicated contract. I do think that it's going to get done. I do think that it's going to get done fairly soon. They want to sell tickets for the new stadium, and they want Lionel Messi there for the opening of the new stadium. So my feeling is that he is going to sign with Inter Miami for next season, that he will be there to launch the new stadium, because that is a huge part of this project, was getting him here, building a fan base, building a stadium. All of this is part of a big project for David Beckham and especially the Mas brothers, who are the ones that are putting the majority of the money into it. They really need Lionel Messi on board with this project. He can't bow out now. He's part of the project, and a big part of his financial package involves equity in this team upon retirement.
David Beckham spotted this week in the front row up at Wimbledon earlier this week, watching the tournament out there. But let's talk the other part of this, Michelle. I know you wanted to talk about was we talked about a talent gap between we talked about a talent gap between PSG and Montreal. There is a massive gap between what Messi is going to make and what some of the other fellas on this team are making right now.
It's unbelievable. And if you want to, I hope you're sitting down for a couple of these numbers. But okay, so the MLSPA releases twice a year the list of all the salaries in the league. And so Lionel Messi makes $20.4 million is his salary. Of course, that doesn't include all the endorsements and all that. Just his MLS straight salary is $20 million, which leads the league. And leads, by the way, he makes more than some of the teams make combined, their whole payroll. And Inter Miami has the highest payroll in all of MLS at $46.84 million. Okay, so they have the highest payroll in the league. However, on the bottom of the list, very second to last on the salaries, is Yannick Bright. Yannick, if you need a new agent, I'm here. No, I'm just kidding. Yannick Bright is making $83,000 with the guaranteed money. His straight salary is $80,000. So he is a starter. This is a guy, he's injured right now, unfortunately, coming back from injury. But Yannick Bright is making $80,000, $83,000 with the guaranteed compensation, $83,000. Lionel Messi is making $20 million. They're on the same team. Noah Allen, who has started every game this season, who Mascherano said is his favorite player, the player who mirrors him, the most relates to. He loves Noah Allen. Noah Allen is making $126,700. $126,700. Yannick Bright, $83,000. Meanwhile, Santi Morales, no offense, but $112,000 for Santi Morales. Tyler Hall, whom we have not seen play for Inter Miami yet. He was from the second team brought up. He makes more than Yannick Bright. So there are definitely some new contracts that need to be negotiated on the bottom of this roster. As far as the top, there are 5 players making $1 million. Allende makes $1 million. Suarez 1.5. Alba $6 million. Busquets $8.8 million. And then Messi $20.4 million. And then just really quickly, just to throw in some other numbers of just so people have an idea. Lujan, $818,000. Ustadi, $744,000. Marcelo Weigand, Chelo, $734,000. Fafa, $600,000, $640,000. Obando, Alan Obando, 500,000. That was a little eye-popping to me compared to Yannick Bright and Noah Allen. And then Baltasar Rodriguez, 440,000. So, you know, there are gaps there.
There's some people watching and listening to this in their offices going, wait a minute, you're saying that I'm making more than the guy who passes the ball to Lionel Messi? Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying I personally know that feeling, but okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there's a big gap. One last one I want to say is that Drake Callender, who came in as the starting keeper, when his contract was negotiated, he was the starting keeper and captain of the team. His salary is $458,000. So Obando is making more than Drake Callender, and Ustadi, who just signed this new 1-year deal, $744,000 compared to Drake at $458,000. There are some disparities on that payroll.
Some of these guys that are making on the lower end of what you were talking about. I mean, these are salaries that, you know, baseball players, rookies that just broke into the majors make, or maybe even minor leaguers in some cases make. I mean, this is not anything extravagant, unless the interesting part is some of the guys who have barely had playing time or haven't been as pivotal, as crucial to this team the way a guy like Yannick Bright has. But you know, hey, there's a lot of layers to this, I'm sure. So, one of them, obviously, like we were talking about before, is Miami Freedom Park, which you had a chance, Michelle, to take a little tour of, and we have some imagery between photos and video to show the fans at home. But take it away. You were there. Let us know. How does
I was there. Let me just, I'll introduce the video. We got a tour, a media tour, and I've been dying to see it, to be honest, because I drive past it on the way to the airport. I've been seeing it rise out of the ground. We see this thing rise out of the ground. And we got a chance. They did a media tour for the local media to go in and go into the stadium and see what it looks like. And then we also went to the ticket office, where they have models, really nice models of what it is going to look like. They even had a replica where you got to walk into one of the suites of what the suites are going to look like. And they had it all fully equipped with the alcohol, with the sushi, with everything. So you could see what is it going to feel like to be sitting on those sofas and to be eating the sushi and to be drinking the champagne in the suites that they're going to have. So it's, for those who don't know much about it, it's a 25,000 seat stadium. So not very big, but very luxurious. 25,000 seat stadium. It's going to have all the bells and whistles, beautiful suite levels and stuff like that. And it is supposed to open. We spoke to the vice president of the stadium construction, and he said that they are on schedule to open for all of the home games next season of 2026 to be played at the new stadium. Now, the one caveat I'll throw in is that they are working with MLS on the schedule for 2026, and I anticipate, and I asked them, and they said that is a strong possibility that at the very beginning of the season in March, they will probably have the road games to start the season, to give them an extra little cushion, to have one more month of construction. So I don't see them opening the season on the last weekend of February, the first weekend of March at that stadium. Mm-hmm. I'm looking more at April. They're probably going to play some games, which is what happened with DC when they opened Audi Field. It's what happened in Austin with their new stadium. They pushed the opener of the new stadium a little bit into the season so that there is a cushion. And by the way, in South Florida, there's a lot of rain and there are hurricane warnings and things like that during these next few months. So the construction could be affected by weather. But the plan is for 2026. And here is a video of the construction site and of some renderings of what it's going to look like. Hello, Inter Miami fans. Yes, I'm wearing a pink hard hat because I am at the construction site of Miami Freedom Park. And here it is. I'll give you a little go around. They are on schedule, they say, to play all of the 2026 home games at this stadium. There may be some games at the very beginning of the season on the road to give them a cushion of time to finish, which is very customary for new stadiums. But the word from the people who are working here on the construction is that they are on schedule. And the next step of what they're going to do after this is the canopy. There's going to be a canopy that's going to go from the pitch all the way out so that it'll be covered. That part of all of the fans will be covered. There are a lot of fancy lounges and loge boxes and all kinds of bells and whistles at the stadium. So here we are, Miami Freedom Park, 2026.
And there it is. It looks like
there it is. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to have.
It looks like your signature big event soccer stadium right there. What it'll look like once it's finished, of course.
Yeah. I mean, it looks really nice. You know, the canopy, they're very excited about the canopy. They talked a lot about this canopy because it goes from the touch line all the way out to the outer concourses. And so the concourse is going to be on the outer perimeter of the stands, not inner. So, you know, like in the Miami Marlins Park, you know, the concourse is inside. This one is going to be an outer perimeter concourse, but it will be covered. You will be able to see views of the city, you know, while you're standing in line for your food. You'll be able to see scenes of the city all the way walking around the entire stadium. And there's going to be 5,000 parking spots on site. There will be 5,000 parking spots on site, which they say is the most of any team in MLS. So there will be 5,000 on site. And then there's also going to be, you'll be able to go by Brightline train and by Metro Rail. There's going to be the station that's right by the airport at the transportation hub. There will be a walkway that you'll be able to walk from there. So they're hoping that a lot of people also take public transportation to the airport station of Tri-Rail, of Tri-Rail, not Brightline, Tri-Rail. Never mind the Brightline. Brightline is in downtown. Tri-Rail and Metro Rail both have stations that are by the airport, and that will be integrated into the transportation system for this stadium. So there's a lot of work to be done, obviously. For those of you who could see the video, you know, there's a lot of work to be done over the next 9 or 10 months, but they say that they're going to do it. They're going to be working 24/7 to get this thing done.
Yeah, and going back to the capacity, you said 25,000. That's not bad because the average, I looked it up, between 18 and 30,000, most MLS stadiums, that's the average capacity. So 25 is kind of right in that sweet spot where you probably, it's not too big of a stadium, but with the potential to pack that place on a big night.
They want to pack it. They want to have a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
They would like to have 25,000 for all the games, have it packed, have it be a really great, intimate, wonderful atmosphere, not have a million empty seats. That doesn't work. So, you know, I think it after so many years, you know, David Beckham started this project in 2014 when he first came and stood there on the waterfront and said he wants to bring a team to Miami. That was 11 years ago. He's still waiting for his Miami stadium. And, you know, if everything goes as planned, he will finally have that stadium in 2026.
There you go.
And then we're just waiting for confirmation that Lionel Messi will be kicking a ball there to start that stadium. But I absolutely believe that it's going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to find a way. You know, Sir David Beckham and everyone else will
Sir
find.
David and the Mas brothers will find a way.
Yep, absolutely. And well, you know, can't wait to see what it'll look like once it takes even more form. I'm sure we'll cover that down the road and see how that goes. But pretty jam-packed episode we've had this week. Thank you everybody, as always, for watching us on YouTube or at MiamiHerald.com and listening to us as well. If you get a chance to see it on YouTube, so that way you can see Michelle's tour. I hope you got a chance to keep that hard hat. That was nice.
I did not get to keep the hard hat.
No.
It was pretty cool.
Oh,
we did not get to keep the hard hat. No, we had to give it back. The vest and the hard hat, we had to give it back.
Oh, well. Yeah. But we'll be back.
Just the memories. Just the memories.
You have it on film. You have it on film, too. And we'll be back next week. You'll be able to see us again here on Inside Inter Miami. We'll be back talking about Miami's return to MLS play. How did it go up in Montreal? We'll cover all of that and look at what's next on the busy schedule, this busy month of July that's coming up for this team as it tries to climb its way back up in the MLS standings. But until then, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami. Enjoy the 4th of July weekend, everybody.